Jamie and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about episode 2 of series 4 of Ghosts, and I did do a video on episode 1, so if you want to watch that it will be up here somewhere if you haven't watched it already. As I said in that video, I want to keep the comments limited to talk about episode 2 and obviously episode 1. I expect everybody would have seen episode 1 if they're watching a video on episode 2. But yeah, so no spoilers for any future episodes, as people might be watching it episode by episode, week by week, so may not have watched future episodes yet. And yeah, it'd be nice to just discuss each episode individually as well. Apologies if I sound a bit nasally today. I've got a bit of a cold, but we're just working through it. It'll be good. Yeah, let's just get straight into the video. So this episode was probably my favourite. I don't know, it's so hard to pick, but I absolutely loved this one. I thought it was a very, very strong episode, right from the start. Let's start with the main plot line. My favourite, obviously, Mary's backstory, and not necessarily all of her backstory, but also I think it's quite interesting they haven't just focused on her life and her death, and they have kind of explored her life in the afterlife, which I think is really interesting. We had something similar with Julian when we first saw him, his first kind of actions as a ghost, which is quite interesting. So Mary, as many people predicted, was burnt at the stake for being a witch. And for people commenting on the historical accuracy of that, because I had loads of people telling me I was wrong for saying that she was burnt at the stake for being a witch in one of my first ever ghost theory videos. Reminder, I did not write the show. I'm just going by what they said. And so yeah, that is what happened in the show. Some farmers or whoever blamed Mary, accused her of being the witch because their crops weren't growing. They had all dead crops. And I think that sounds like a very typical thing of what we kind of hear about women who are accused of being witches. It was kind of just somebody to blame for the bad happenings of the town, so I think that's quite accurate. And yeah, it's just the fact that she was blamed because she talked to herself and she had a dead husband who died in an accident, so she was a very easy target for them to blame. And yeah, very, very sad. And especially in the previous episode, we had her talking about how nice her life was up until a point. I think we can see that there, because she was obviously just peacefully living her life and then was blamed by some horrible people. I think it's quite interesting that we kind of jumped into Mary telling the story, so we didn't actually see what prompted her to tell the story of her death. And I think this kind of plays into what we learn in the episode about how she's learning to find her voice, learning to become more confident and learning to appreciate her afterlife and to not kind of dwell on what happened in her life, and that she's had this chance to live how she would have wanted to live when she was alive. So I think that is really, really heartwarming, and yeah, I really, really liked that. And also, one of my favourite parts about this thing is that we had her interactions with Annie, which I thought was so wonderful. I really, really liked that. It was so lovely. So I think Mary said it was about 50 years after her death. Annie was Puritan and, was also kind of being scolded by the men in her village, and then stole some bread, choked on it and died. And her first people that she meets are Humphrey's head, Mary and Robin, also known as Rot as at the time, I think it was. So I liked that when I first watched the episode, I thought that she saw Mary and that's what caused her to choke, but that's not what it was. She just choked on her bread. But I thought that would be really cool if she did see the ghosts. But yeah, and her being really angry that she was not immediately let into heaven. And I think we kind of we use Annie as the example of she had a purpose in the afterlife, and her purpose was to help other women regain their voices and kind of stand up to the restrictions and everything that they had to face in their lives, and get a chance to enjoy living even though they're dead. I thought Annie and Mary's friendship was just so lovely, and Annie becoming her best friend and them insulting everybody, or Annie first of all insulting people, using the whole point is using death to regain their voices as women. And I think that is just such a fantastic story and kind of a theme that is relevant still today. And I just thought the whole fun, all of their insults were hilarious, and seeing Mary grow from being unable to insult a scarecrow to throwing insults at people who said something about being a witch, and then also seeing them throughout history. They kind of remind me of gossiping Mean Girls, but Mean Girls that were valid in their insults, but actually really nice. That's kind of what the vibe they gave me. And then actually insulting Thomas, who they then obviously go on to know and become friends with. That was really funny, and yeah, I wish Annie had been in the series the whole time. I thought she was hilarious. And obviously we saw Annie move on or get sucked off and goes into the afterlife, or the afterlife. I don't know where it is, heaven, I don't know, or just, into nowhere. And I think that was really lovely and poignant, and how Mary just got back on with her life, or afterlife. And then Mary lives in her afterlife with the purpose of making the most of that afterlife until they move on. And I think that's wonderful, and something that can be applied to people's lives, make the most of the life you've got. The next plot line that we had was Thomas trying to get over his affection and obsession with Alison. I really, really liked this plot line. I thought it was very, very funny, especially Pat's role in this plot line as well. So yeah, I thought this was fantastic, and I think it's what makes it a very highlight of this episode, because she had all the very emotional but heartwarming things with Mary, and also comedy with Mary and Annie, and then there's very funny interactions and storyline from Thomas and Pat. So this is where we got the scene from the trailer where it looked like Thomas was high on something, and he wasn't actually high. He was going through withdrawal, where he was getting hallucinations and stuff like that, which was very funny. And obviously it implies that he said he'd done opium before and had to go through withdrawal of that. So it'd be interesting to see his kind of life, and whether he did party it up, we hear of Byron doing and stuff like that, or whether that was just kind of a normal thing for them to do. So I'd love to hear a bit more about Thomas's backstory as well. Not really backstory, but just life. Yeah, I just like the whole thing with Thomas being stuck up in an attic room with Humphrey's head, them just chatting around, and Pat standing outside like a bodyguard. I thought Pat, was probably one of the highlights for me of this episode. I thought he was hilarious. The way he kind of went all this tough man look, I thought that was very funny, and a different demeanour that we get from Pat as well, and tackling him and holding his arm back and taking him back to his cell, and then actually getting a bit shocked by what he'd said to Thomas. I just thought it was hilarious. It's very Pat, and yeah, I thought it was very funny. I just absolutely loved every second of that plot line. It's nice to see a different side to Thomas, where he's actually trying to get over his, he knows it's inappropriate, but he just can't help himself. And for all of his hard work to be ruined because Alison says oh, I could kiss you. I thought that was very funny. Again, just very typical of Thomas. Okay, one thing I also liked about the hallucinations was that we had Alison kind of voices in his head, and also Alison's face being on all the other ghosts, which they've done that when Kitty's flashback, when it all of the guests and all of the family members were kind of represented by the ghosts, and it was nice seeing Alison kind of in all the other ghosts' places. I really enjoyed that. The next bit that I really, really liked was the captain and Kitty kind of have a bonding moment throughout this whole episode. Again, they're not two characters that are normally paired together, so I really enjoyed seeing them together in this episode. And I think, obviously, they're such polar opposites of each other, and it's nice to see them work together, try and help Captain get over this kind of rigidity in his life. And I thought that was wonderful. I thought it was very sweet, and also very funny as well, and seeing Kitty just being off flying with the butterflies, and then the Captain getting obsessed with the ants. I think, obviously, we can see that they are polar opposites, but they do have obsessions and quirks that are the same as well. So I thought that was really, really sweet. And obviously there was a line about the Captain talking about how butterflies come out and live their fabulous lives, and obviously that's another little thing about him being gay and not ready to come out yet. I just loved seeing the Captain be a bit more carefree. I thought that was very lovely to see, especially someone who has been kind of very restrained and living a very structured and disciplined life. I think it's nice to see him kind of let go a bit. Seeing him and Kitty skipping around the grounds was very funny. I very much liked that. I thought it was very sweet. And then at the end, where Captain had he came back all very chill, relaxed, and had his blazer off, which was the first time I've ever seen him with his blazer off, popped over his shoulder, and then for as soon as them to kind of oh no, we need to stick to the schedule because we need to finish this in time to watch the next episode of, I can't remember what they were watching, and then his blazer was immediately back on, which is obviously because they have to remain with Thomas with the letter where it kept going back into his pocket. But I just thought that was, the comedic timing of that was hilarious. I just loved that. I thought it was so funny, especially because Captain's arm was still up there, and obviously shows how easily he just snaps back into rigidity as well. And I thought Kitty had some very nice sentiments as well, just being like, oh, you shouldn't be killing time, you should be enjoying time. And I thought that was a very sweet sentiment to live by. So yeah, this episode is very like philosophical in a lot of ways, and I think that was very lovely. And yeah, there's a lot of things we could take away from this episode and actually like apply it to our own lives, which I really like. The last little bit of plotline I think that I wanted to talk about was Alison and Mike. We got that nod to kind of the real life situations of people like, in real life. And that was Alison and Mike having like really high energy bills because of like they've opened the gatehouse, they didn't take that into consideration, and Alison losing her ring, which then applies to the Thomas storyline. And then we had Mike's college friends come in and tried to get them into a cult, which I thought was very funny, and just seeing their reactions, not knowing how to say no, and then Alison having to talk to the ghost, and that's what kind of drives them away. Like I guess Alison would seem very crazy, but I would say joining a cult is crazier. Like the way they were talking about it and then be shocked, like talking about the High Shepherd and stuff like that, and then being shocked that like Alison's a bit weird. So I thought that was very funny. I really liked that. And Alison going out on her walk and finding the fact that not many ghosts are in, like, the ghosts are kind of living their own lives, which is what she wanted, but then to also kind of be disappointed that they don't need her as much anymore. But then taking Robin out for a walk and kind of realising how he is very much a mix of being very civilised, cultured and knowledgeable, and also still being like an animal at the same time. And then that obviously playing into Fanny's little like bit that we got where she has a little pet cemetery and then at the end is grooming Robin's hair, which I thought was so lovely. I really like that. And again, two characters that are not often paired together having a nice bonding moment. So yeah, this whole episode was just wonderful, heartwarming, funny, silly. It was a perfect episode for me. I thought it was just so well written. I'm not sure, I can't remember who wrote this episode, but I just thought it was fantastic. There's nothing in this episode. I mean, there wasn't really much in the last episode I could critique, but yeah, and it's just perfect. The writing is just so amazing. And again, how many different plot lines they can fit in one episode and how they all link to each other very well. Like, it's so seamless. It doesn't seem like chopped up, like, oh, these people are doing that, these people are doing that. It flows so well into each other, and the way they link up is just amazing. If you like this video, then please give it a like and comment down below your thoughts on Ghosts Series 4 Episode 2. And yeah, subscribe if you want to see more videos to do with ghosts. I'll have some more out for you soon. Yeah, thank you for watching. Bye!